This is the Doctor of Digital podcast and your host, the Doctor of Digital. The purpose of the show is to introduce you to trends in business, technology, marketing your message, and to meet good people you should know. Did you know that passive funds managed about $8 trillion or 20% of aggregate investment fund assets, up from 8% a decade ago? In the context of multifamily syndication, passive income generates investments in multifamily real estate properties. During this episode, we'll discuss the changes and hot topics in real estate investing, passive income, and multifamily syndication to understand how these financial tools work and whether they are right for you. By the end of this episode, you will be better equipped to know what to do, and I'm going to encourage you to reach out to my special guest, Chad Wittfeldt. My guest today, Chad, is a real estate investor, multifamily syndicator, passive income producer, cash flow connector and creator, and a branding and an automation expert. Chad, welcome to the program. Thanks for taking out some time to see us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So we're always interested, of course, in a little bit of your background and how is it that you got into this particular field of all things in the first place?
Great question. So I grew up Midwest Michigan, pretty middle class upbringing, and pretty quickly moved to Colorado after finishing up school, all that good stuff. I was simply just riding my bike at a bike park, brand new to Colorado, wanted to meet a new friend, and just struck up a conversation with a guy who's getting started in apartments. And the rest of the story is honestly history. So really just right place, right time, and being charismatic and charming enough to strike up a meaningful conversation with a random person.
and humble too.
Exactly.
So this has probably been a little bit of time since then. So now I'm curious, what kinds of changes have taken place and what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah. So when I first got started, I really had no idea what I was doing, to be completely frank. I mean, I was 22, turning 23. And luckily I came onto the team. They already had quite a lot of foundation under their belts. They already had a ton of education and mentorship. They already had access to somewhat of a capital stack. They had some strategies in place, things of that nature. So I was at least able to come into some guidance. However, I had no experience. I had no money. All I had was hustle and grit. And so my first iteration into partnering on an 83 unit apartment was really just me grinding cold calls to brokers to find deals. Me kind of being like almost like an assistant, like it's time to call the capital. All right, Chad, pick up the phone and call the capital. Like it was really, I don't want to say barbaric, but for lack of a better term, there was really no finesse. There's nothing substantial about it. And then obviously that put enough pain where I didn't enjoy doing it. And that was also when I got more of an intimate look at really like the digital marketing space in general. And so we've gone through a whole lot of iterations since then. Today, my company builds done-for-you acquisitions systems for some of the top 5% real estate operators in the world. We partner with them. So we come into their business, implement our model, our processes, manage them, optimize them, all that good stuff. And that's really our value prop into various real estate funds, syndications, and partnerships. And so it's gone from completely random, barbaric, I have no idea what I'm doing, to a precision-like system and process. And so it's been going on 8 years now, since day one till day today.
It's refined. And the thing is, you're still hitting some really key qualities of success, which is the grit and determination and passion and going for it. And this is the kind of thing that a lot of younger people miss out. They say, well, I'd like 100,000 income coming out of college. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to work at it a bit. And when you make these deals, it's curious how this actually works. Like, how would you say you invest in something and how do you connect with those people? How do you trust them? Do you meet them? How does that actually work out?
Yeah, great question. So On the active side, my company's actively involved in the process of the deal. However, I've also passively invested into quite a few different properties as well. Right now, the process is different to going through that vetting to make sure, hey, this operator is a good operator. They're
Yeah,
going to do the right thing. They
sure.
have experience. They have all these things there. It's a little bit different on each side. However, we're looking for the common ground. Obviously, you have that gut check, number one, which I to this day still listen to, but really you're just trying to find out, is this person what they say they are, right? Have they actually successfully acquired and cash flowed a deal? Have they cycled a deal for a disposition,
Mhm.
right? And so as you start to gather this information, it's really just about not knowing what to ask, right? Knowing and having enough confidence to ask the hard questions,
Mhm.
which oftentimes not a lot of people really do, right? Primarily because they don't necessarily have the experience, or they just take people's word at face value, and
Right.
that's okay. But like, trust but verify,
Sure.
right? And so that's what we do. And then on our active side, like I said, we only work with the top 5% of operators, and so they do go through a qualification process. We do have a look at the portfolio, their track record, how large their team is. We ask to see, their current marketing ad spend for their funds, for their deals, what they're doing on that front. So by the end of it, we have a really, really good understanding of who they actually are and what kind of deals they're capable of doing.
I see. Yeah, it's trust but verify. It's a great expression. It was Ronald Reagan who said that too. Yeah, we're going to trust the Ruskies, but yeah, let's verify it
Let's
too.
verify it. Yep.
Makes sense. Now, curious, and you've talked about some change that have taken place. Are there some hot topics? Are there some things that are really on the forefront of what you're doing in terms of property size, or what's a real estate market in general like?
The real estate market right now is really going through a challenging place because
Yeah.
you have people on the selling side. They don't necessarily want to leave typically a really, really great interest rate to disposition into something that's not so great, right? So you do have those challenges. For that, we're trying to do more creative financing deals. Um, on the other front of that, on the acquisition sides, a lot of the guys I'm working with are just slowing down right now. I think, there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace with interest rates being overhiked by the Fed. And I think right now the whole like really economy and real estate market and operators, a lot of in majority of sentence, like are kind of like, what is going to happen next?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I don't have a future ball, but I certainly don't want to get caught with my pants down. And so I think that in general, from my experience of the operators I work with, that's a lot of what I'm seeing take place right now.
And given that's the situation, because it's sort of volatile based on what you're
Right.
saying and the way things are going, it's up and down, it can be losing money. What would you generally recommend people start thinking about? Or if they're thinking of investing, what should they be doing now that given the situation that we're in currently?
Yeah, I think I was just having a conversation with this about my friend the other day. Like being ahead is always typically going to be the most
Okay.
fruitful,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of makes me think of the guys who saw COVID coming and ramped up a drop shipping mask store before it was mandated for the entire world, right? Those guys made a
Mhm.
killing because they were very, very perspicaciously aware of what is going to happen, right? I think this instance is a little bit different because there's so many unknown variables. But I mean, whether or not it's such a deep question to unpack because there's so many different ways to invest in real estate.
Right.
Right. So I think right now, like if you're in that play, it just depends on where you're at. Like if you want to be an active operator, that's one thing. That's fantastic. Make sure you got some tough skin. Make sure, make sure you got some grit. Make sure you got some income that you can sit on because you might not make a dollar for a couple years. Like you could be going at it for some time to close your first deal as an active operator and not get anything done. If you want to be a passive investor, that looks completely different. And so I think it's really about knowing thyself, right? What is going to be best for you? What's going to be best for your financial goals? And then you really have to internally audit, what do I have available? Do I have time? Do I have capital? Do I have experience? What do I have? What can I bring to the table because I can promise you, despite social belief today, there are no free seats at the lunch table in these deals. I promise you. So get used to it.
There is no free lunch, as the expression goes. Is there a certain thing that you would recommend? In other words, sometimes people invest in their own home, in a single family home, or are there places that are more lucrative, multifamily, or and then regionally too? Are you're in one part of the country, but are there parts of the country that people should be looking at, or would you look at those kinds of questions?
Yeah, I mean, as far as location goes, I've never worked with a single operator that acquires properties in blue states. It's primarily because they're not very business friendly laws. So we don't typically invest there, right? They have really, everything favors the tenant. And sometimes those tenants can abuse those laws in their favor to literally be professional tenants and not pay rent for years, right? So we don't invest there, plain and simple. On the other side of that, like, again, it's just, you have to be realistic. I see this time and time again. I even got a friend of mine. He calls it passive income because he Airbnbs out his mother-in-law suite downstairs. Oh, I'm making, an extra $2,500 a month passive income. Well, hey man, what's going on? Oh, I'm cleaning the basement. Oh, I got an Airbnb guest coming in tomorrow, cleaning the basement. Oh yeah, I got to drop off the keys. I got to make sure that they get home, get there from, like, dude, that's not passive. Like, oh, you have a job, right? And so again, like, you have to be realistic. And I think in this space where passive income and real estate investing is so sexy, apparently on social media, it drives people to be extraordinarily unrealistic in their inputs and their outputs, right? So if you truly do want passive income, I can promise you it's not going to be by Airbnb out your single family residence. Like, even if you put a property manager in place, I promise you that property manager will call you. They will be calling you. Hey, I just got a complaint that the toilet's out. You want us to try and fix it or replace it, right? You're picking up the phone, you're managing the property. And so like, if you do want 100% passive income, it's not going to be in those strategies, plain and simple. And that's okay. But you have to, at least at a really, really vulnerable and foundational level, understand what it is you're looking to do. Right? Are you looking to put $100,000 into a deal and have it truly be passive? Then you need to go look for those opportunities for what they actually are. Don't go find a pig and put lipstick on it and say it's passive income, because it's not. So
The passive income, then, to distinguish, is passive is when you're investing, but I understand what you're saying, then you're not managing it and you're not fixing the toilets and you're not cleaning it. You are investing and then you want an ROI on your investment. That truly is passive.
right. Yeah. So the deals, I've invested passively into 4 deals, and I literally do nothing. I just get a check every quarter. That's it. They send me an email, keep me updated on the property. I don't read it. My assistant does. She reads it. If there's any, typically it says the same thing. Oh, things are going great. Here's your check, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's completely passive. I don't even give it an ounce of energy or brain matter. Right. So it's truly passive. However, I'm in other deals where I have to pick up the phone and talk to the operators on a weekly basis. That's not passive, and that's okay. Right. Just make sure you're getting paid a lot more for your activity, if you're actively involved in the deal versus passively involved in it. And that's a whole nother conversation as well. But yeah.
Well, it's a matter of, if you're doing work. I mean, this is the idea of not being a slave, right? If you are
Right.
doing work, you deserve to get paid. So if you are doing something, then you need money for what your effort is.
Yeah. In proper proportion to what your time's worth, which
Right, right. So you got to figure out how much your time is worth, right? If you don't value yourself, then your time is not worth anything. If you value
yeah.
yourself, your price goes up. Is there Could you generalize? Could you say that multifamily units are better than single homes, or is there, what would you say about that question?
I don't have a whole lot of experience with single family residence. I've never owned one. I've never even owned my own primary residence. I don't have any single family stuff in my portfolio.
Right.
So I don't have a whole lot to speak on from personal experience, but from a I guess just from a theory and foundational place, the biggest draw against single family residence versus a multifamily investment,
Mhm.
single family, you have one tenant. And if you bank on that one tenant paying rent, it tells me you've never actually owned a piece of real estate as an investment before, right? People don't pay rent all the time. The difference is when you have a 100-unit apartment building, let's say 5 of them don't pay for 6 months, the deal property still cash flows,
Yeah.
right? You got 100 people in there. So I think that's really, really a large component to that. I don't really have much drive to get into single family rentals or anything like that. And so, yeah, I don't bother with them personally.
Now, one of the things you had mentioned that you have a company. So I'm curious now if you could talk about what it is that you have, or what is your business services, and what is it that you recommend that people think about if they are considering talking to you?
Yeah, so my company's called Deals on Demand, and what we do is put all of the parameters in place for a real estate investment operation company to thrive. Right? This is going to be having the proper systems that we've sprinkled tons of automation and AI and all these incredible things to not only leverage in their team so that they can produce at a much, much higher level than they normally would, but also track every single little component along the way. And the reason why that's so important is because the most common pitfall I find with real estate operators is they don't track anything, right? They don't even know, right, whether or not we're working with a real estate fund to acquire more accredited investors into the fund, or we're working with, a wholesaler. They don't know their cost per lead. They don't know their cost per booked qualified call. They don't know their cost per acquisition, right? And so when we have our ability to track and optimize every single component along the way, it allows us to create an extraordinarily powerful system that absolutely destroys their competition because we can outmarket them when we have direct control over the levers. And so it's a very, very robust system and robust process. But in a quick little nutshell, we build acquisition systems for real estate operators.
I see. Now, I'm curious, of course, if a person has heard that and know what you offer, what would you say is the best way to get a hold of you? How do they get in touch with you? Give them some contact information so they'd like to follow up, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. I always recommend just finding me on social media first. Take a look at what we got going on. It's so funny. People always say never do business with your friends. Personally, if we can't be friends first, I don't typically have a place to do business with people. I don't want to have to pick up like, oh man, Mike's calling me again. I don't want to talk to this guy, So I prefer to have good friendship, good relationships before we do business. So find me on social media and just have a conversation with me first.
And the name of the company, too, so they know how to get a hold of you, or how do they get you on social media?
Yeah, it's deal. You can find me at Chad Wittfeldt on social media.
Right. Chad, thanks for enlightening us and give us some insight into this whole idea of passive income. I appreciate your time and taking some time out and chat with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Well, I'd like to know if you would want to keep on listening, because hopefully you're finding people like Chad very interesting, because I do. And if you like the show, make sure that you subscribe, like, share, and positively review, especially on Apple Podcasts. That helps the episodes coming. So until the next time, we have another exciting and interesting guest. We'll see you next time. It's the Doctor of Digital signing off. Deus Volt.